What up, guys? Welcome back to Base Damage. Hope everyone is having a awesome day today. Today, I wanted to do a little bit of a discussion. I say discussion, but just kind of showcase a recent change to the English Weiss Schwarz Banlist. It already went into effect. It went back into effect January 27th, 2023. So it's already February for me when I'm recording this. I'm a little late to the party, but I wanted to do a little bit of a discussion on it in terms of talking about what is currently on here as well as what got added. And this picture itself is from a Weiss Tea Time, so definitely check them out. They got all sorts of information, awesome stuff. But they made this little infographic thing here and showed off what is currently on the ban list. But if you also go to the Ian Weiss page, this has also been updated there, updated on December 30th. And if you scroll down over to the bottom section where it does say restriction list, it shows you what is currently up there, when it got added and everything. And the most recent addition is from the quintessential quintuplets. Very kind of expected that quintuplets was going to get hit, but if you just want a coverage on what got hit, we'll do that real quick, and then I'll do the discussion afterwards. If all you're here for is just like, hey, what got hit, let me know so I know what not to have to play. Or what cards I know not to have to play around, So from quintuplets, two particular cards got hit. It is a choose one of two. So you can only choose one of these, which I do have to zoom in a little bit thanks to how the thing pops in. So it's going to be a little bit funky when I go back to the deck construction thing. But this card is actually a really, really good utility card. I like it a lot. Is Daily Routine Nino Nakano, obviously used in the Nino 8 standby deck. And honestly, the 8 standby deck was kind of the thing, like, this is probably going to get hit. I'm sitting over here. I have my own version of the deck, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going to get hit from it. So luckily, I don't have to worry about too terribly much, and I'll explain that more in a bit. But Daily Routine Nino Nakano says, on play, you can pitch a Nino card from hand to draw a card. It also has another effect when it's played. You can discard a card, any card, not a Nino card, but for the second effect is any card. And if you do reveal the top card of your deck, choose a level X or lower character in your waiting room, return it to your hand, and X is equal to the level of the revealed card. So you play, you pitch a card, and you top check. If it's a level 3, you can add a level 3 or lower character from waiting room back to hand. But it's really good for getting the Ninos in grave messing around with Yu-Gi-Oh! Recently. Into the waiting room to set up for your standby plays and whatnot. It's just really good like that. So you have to pick either this or you have to pick this event. Important Charm is a level 2, 3 cost backup event that says choose one of your opponent's characters and that character gets -3 soul until end of turn. Now, because it doesn't state, as far as I know, there's not an errata. Because it doesn't state choose one of your characters one of your opponent's characters in battle. You can use this, like if you know someone else has like an effect that says, oh, during this card's battle, your opponent can't use backup or events or some shit. When someone else attacks, you could use this and then target that one that's like, oh, you can't use shit. But being able to make a character have -3 soul is pretty cool. Make certain that you be able to survive for a turn. So this is very kind of understandable. This is really powerful for anyone who knows an event from a while back called Darkness Plan from the Two Love Ruse set. It's not the exact same because that one straight up says you can't deal damage. But this is just -3 soul. So if your opponent somehow triggers something that would put them over 3 soul, they can still try to do some damage to you. But more often, like most of the time, even with like climax combos that'll say the character across from this gets -soul, it's usually only about like -2 or so. So being able to do this with put -3 soul is pretty strong. So you can only pick one of these two. Now that's what got added, and if that's all you're here for, thank you for watching. But I am going to go a little bit deeper into this because in JP, they had other cards up there. This went into effect for JP in December 10th. I bring up JP because I'm used to doing that with other card games, looking at what the OCG or the Japanese side does, because typically theirs will come out like at a different time. And sometimes, not every time, sometimes a lot of choices in terms of what gets hit can be the same or similar, type stuff. But especially with the case for this in the JP list, if you zoom in a little bit, and it's going to get blurry, but it's because of how far I have to zoom in on this. It's a massive picture. You do have that Nino, that level 0, and the level 2 event. But you have other cards up here. These have already been on the list for a little bit, alongside a Ichika Brainstormer that we are going to look at right here. This is really, really good Brainstormer and used a lot for the 8 standby deck. It is it's an act. You can pay 1 and sack this card. Look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, choose a quintuplets, add it to reveal it to your opponent, add it to your hand, put the rest in the waiting room. Then it has a Brainstorm effect. Pay 1 stock, rest 2 characters, flip 5 cards over, and for every climax, search your deck for a character with Ichika in its name. This is used for a lot of the Nino card. One of the level 2 Ninos or whatever gets like a character encore. I think the level 3 does as well. I have to check. But I know the level 2 has a character encore. So they would use this Brainstormer to grab a whole bunch of Ichikas to pitch for the Nino to just character encore it back instead of having to worry about it, like stock or whatever. So this was really cool, but it is on the JP list. So this is so it's part of the choose one of 3. So the other 2 cards that we now have on the ban list, plus this Brainstormer, you can only run 1 of those. So what's interesting is you can still, like in English, you can still play this Brainstormer. You can still play the version that's currently out, and then you just opt between one of these 2. Now the other thing that's interesting, because like for this particular infographic, it says C3, so it's choose one of 3, etc. Another card got added for the quintuplet set, which was the level 3 Nino right here, which is this one. And this is one of the key things of the standby deck, for the 8 standby deck. So this is limited to, in JP you can only use 2 copies. The reason being is this very first effect is if the standby is in your climax area, this card gets the standby trigger icon in all of your zones. What means is if you have that standby in play and you trigger this on your character's attack, you can activate the standby effect and summon another character. So they're like, oh, you essentially, quote unquote, have 12 standby icons, 12 standby triggers in your deck, technically. It's not exact, but there's also other decks that work with like some of the choice trigger stuff with Tokyo Revengers. I know Danmachi has some other stuff that's like, oh, this counts as doing the choice trigger. So there are other sets that have similar effects. And so this is very powerful. And the 8 standby quintuplets deck has definitely been seeing a lot of play, topping, winning some of the major regionals and whatnot. So it's definitely something that is very rampant. And to the point that people are like, there are several Attack on Titan anti-meta decks that are specifically being used like to target like standby decks in general, not just the quintuplets. Mushoku Tensei is a big thing. And other standby decks in general, they're like, oh, this helps us combat those much easier. So when you're having to like make like anti-meta decks off of that, it's like, it shows that how rampant standby decks are and just how prevalent they are, how powerful they can be. So the fact of the matter is that we did not get the Ichika Brainstormer or the level 3 Nino on the ban list in any capacity. Not to say that they won't be up there later in the future, but like everybody was kind of expecting it to happen. And I say everybody, but at least I was expecting it to happen. Other like Mushoku Tensei with like the Ghislaine, I can't pronounce her name, I'm so sorry, is also like, is played in the standby deck and whatnot. So it's not like they're not going to hit standby, especially if it's a type of deck that's very, very prevalent. So yeah, it's just something that I thought was really interesting. I honestly thought they were going to, maybe they didn't want to like hit a whole bunch of cards at one time. If you look at Data Live, you do have 4 cards up there. Honestly, it's like kind of the same thing. Only 2 copies of a level 3 and a choose one of 3 scenario. I didn't know. I guess they didn't want to do the exact same thing and have 2 different sets with the same choose one of 3 and only 2 copies of a level 3 in the deck. I don't know. Maybe. But I'm uncertain of their exact things. Their exact reasonings behind it. I wasn't like watching any of the streams or whatever when it got announced. So I just saw this and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. I need to talk about this. So this is really cool though, because the deck that I have for quintuplets, I don't really run this event right now. I have them. I've contemplated putting them in and experimenting with it, but I honestly like this level 0 Nino way more personally. I'm also not running the Ichika variant. I have all the cards necessary for the Ichika variant, but I don't run that. So even if the Ichika Brainstormer got put up here, I wasn't really in too much of a bad position personally. And there are, like, you can still run the Ichika variant obviously right now, and I could still make that and try it out without having to worry too terribly much. I just can't really fuck with the event because honestly, I really like this level 0 Nino. It's just it's too good to not have in my mind. But the biggest thing obviously was going to be if they hit this, the 2 copies of this Nino, I guess since they announced the movie pack, they may just not want to, hit quintuplets too terribly hard, since the movie pack did get announced for English. I think they have a release date. I could be wrong. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Yes, they do. So for the quintuplets movie is coming out June 2nd. It's still a good ways off. I guess they're going to wait for like stuff to sell, and then for like the for the Fall Fest or whatever, maybe hit it then. I don't know, but at least for another 5 months or so, you still can run the hell out of this. Well, it's February now, so I mean, yeah, I guess it's like all of February. Yeah. So like 4 or 5 months, you can still run it like almost to its full power, minus obviously the pick one or the other. So maybe by the time that comes around, the Ichika may be put up there, maybe they won't. The level 3 Nino might be hit, maybe it won't. I've looked into the movie set, and there are there's more like Nino standby stuff in there, more like climax combos, more standbys and all that. So there is other stuff. I don't think it's going to get changed really too terribly much in terms of like the quote unquote meta version, but I just don't know. I don't want to try to predict anything. Even with this, I didn't want to try to do any kind of predictions, because it's like obviously people are going to be looking at stuff like this to see if it gets hit or whatever. I saw prices go down a good bit for it, and I think prices went right back up after it got announced. So that's why I was like, oh yeah, I probably should definitely talk about this at some point. But yeah, obviously, other than the one combo I stated, there's still other effects to this that make it very powerful. But feel free to check it out for yourself. And obviously, like I said, if you want to know a bit more about the restricted list and everything, if you go to the English Weiss site and go to rules, or if you go to Weiss Tea Time, obviously they got this to fully explain stuff. But if you are ever just completely uncertain or have a hard time finding that, you can go to the rules section and scroll down to the restricted list. So it's at the very bottom of the thing. So that being said, I thank y'all very much for watching. Like I said, I've been kind of wanting to get back into making a bit more content. This is more of like an update video than anything in terms of like recently happened stuff. I also just can't do words right now. I'm about to have to do some editing. So I thank y'all very much for watching. Please like if you want. If not, just, hey, thanks for stopping by, and we will see y'all on the flip side. Peace out for now.